All right. So today I will talk about what it really feels like, at least to me, to work with SEO agencies versus direct clients. So if you ever wonder which model fits you best, I'm going to break it down, the pros, the cons, everything in between, knowing that some of my pros may be some of your cons. That's very personal. Some of you already know me. You know that I'm a freelance SEO writer, I'm an editor, and I'm also a strategist, anything SEO related. Since 2022, I've had more than 10 years in healthcare marketing, and I've worked with both agencies and direct clients. I'm going to share more about my journey, but I've even worked as a mini agency myself. I'm French, but I live in the UK. I spent 10 years in Hong Kong, and I'm now in Spain. I've worked with health brands, nonprofits, e-commerce, SEO and digital marketing agencies, and not so much with Medcom agencies, but a lot of what I'm going to explain apply to those agencies as well. Now, let me walk you through my freelancing journey when it comes to agency. That's actually how I started in 2022 with Upwork, only to get some initial projects, and that's how I got to know more about SEO. This was my very first experience, and like many people, I moved on simply because the rates were very low. And I kind of thought at this point that anything to do with agencies was not the most interesting for me, and I should target direct clients. So most of my work over the years has been with direct clients. But since last year, and that wasn't intentional, I got a referral. I ended up working with agencies again. And in fact, I'm working with 2 agencies right now, and that represents most of my income right now today. This may change again, but that's how it's been. So I have both. And at some point, also after 1 year of freelancing, I've also switched from being an SEO writer with one of my clients as an SEO editor, and I've then hired 2 writers. So I was functioning in some kind of agency mode and trying to coordinate the writers. So I've had that perspective as well, which is why I think I understand my agency clients pretty well, and I wanted to share that with you. But I know a lot of you already have those experiences. For me, when I'm working with an agency, I think it's really important to get awareness of the full picture. I'm part of the project if I'm the writer, but I'm part of the whole team. So I like to know who is involved, who is doing what as part of the team, the scope of work that's covered by the agency. And I usually do not have access to the client directly myself. At best, when I'm the editor, I can see, I get the comments from the client and I have that interaction through Google Doc, but it's nothing like the type of interaction I have with my direct clients. But I think it's important to understand how you function as part of the team, also because you need to understand that the price that the agency is giving to the client, it needs to cover for the whole team. It needs to cover for the whole scope of work. A lot of those agencies do SEO and beyond, but within SEO, they do absolutely everything, including, graphic design, uploading on the website, following up, having strategic reviews, etc., etc. Those are the things you may be able to offer. I know some of you are able to do that, but if you're not, you need to take that into account. The level of services from the agency might be much broader than what you can provide as a solo freelancer. And on top of that, of course, the agency will need to keep their margins, so they will need to protect those margins, which means you may not have so many opportunities to increase your prices over time if they already pay you the maximum they can, so as to keep their margins. As part of this, I've talked to other agency owners, not only the 5 agencies I've worked with so far, but I can tell you the margins, they go from 15%, 15, to 50%. So it's hard to estimate for us the price to the client, but it would be within this range for you to know. The pros for me of working with SEO agencies, again, not just like clients, not all of them are doing good work, but the ones I have now, they're actually pretty knowledgeable in SEO. We have the same value, as in we want to get results for our clients, and they're not pushing me too much on volume. They prefer quality over volume, and that's why we're aligned, and I'm okay to keep those clients with me. But that's not the case with all agencies, I know. The way I see agencies is a way to get access to potentially new clients. Once I have the relationship with them, they can bring additional projects, and this is what has happened for me. And I've had clients that I don't think I would have pursued intentionally, like veterinary, for example, is an opportunity I got through an agency, and that's pretty interesting for me. So I like that. I didn't have to market myself for that one. I like the clarity. Again, that's not true for every agency, but the agencies I'm working with now, they're very upfront. So they have a budget and they're telling me, this is going to be this type of work, and the scope of work is very clear too, because you're part of a process that's already established. And so they know what each person is supposed to do. So as a writer, I know, okay, this is where my work starts and when it finishes. And I know the kind of price they want to give. So it's up to me to decide if it's worth my skill set, time, and energy. But at least I don't need to even think about it too much. And overall, yes, I'm seeing lower cognitive load, because that scope and the information, and sometimes even the onboarding, learning about new tools. So I don't need to communicate with the client, establish how we're going to work, negotiate prices, come up with proposals, etc. So I find it a lot easier mentally in that sense. And the key advantage to me of working with agencies right now is I have access to editors. If the editor is good, is a good coach for your skills, and that's always so valuable to get some feedback and benchmark to keep us going and keep improving, because when you work alone with a client, you don't get that feedback. And because clients don't always have much knowledge about SEO or about good content, they'll be very happy with your work, but it doesn't mean that you're doing the best job ever. So I do like to work with editors from time to time. And I like to have the tools also, especially at the beginning. I didn't know anything about how an SEO project, what it involves and the process. At least I could see, the kind of dashboard and project management tools they are using. And then I could decide if it's something I want to adapt for myself later on. So that was very, very insightful. And the other thing I really like is to be part of a team, which is nice when we work always in the dark and alone. If the team members are nice and I have a good relationship with the agency owner, that's really good. I've also had access to brands that would not work with individual freelancers. So I'm registered as a sole trader and not as an LLC as you have in the US or limited company. And I know this can block some clients working, big corporate clients, to work with individual freelancers. So I've had access to large brands and those bylines because I was accepting to work through this agency. So this could be interesting from a byline perspective. Cons now. On the other hand, what comes up quite often is the fact that you feel like you are not paid as much as you should with the agency, because the agency is keeping this markup. I just want to add a grain of salt again to that, is that in the end, when you do this kind of project, you may find that because you can be so focused, guided, and directed, you don't spend as much time and effort as you would when working with direct clients. So even if the price could be a little lower than what you can get from working directly with clients, the scope of work and all that can also be lower. And so for all of that reason, have a look at the big picture, and you may find that still you're okay. To know if you're okay, you should know your minimum price, your hourly rate to yourself. And if you don't know, there's a calculator I've just published that you can find in the free resources section of my website. That's the number you should have for yourself. And then you can evaluate if it's worth keeping this agency work or not. There's overall less room for negotiation because they have this ceiling, and unless they increase the prices with clients, but you're not in control of that, it's really much more difficult to increase your rates. Nothing is impossible, but it's just compared with clients, that's more difficult, I found. And if you're someone who likes to have control over the whole project and make sure you have more impact on the project, have access to additional opportunities like upselling, say if you're also capable of covering more than the blog, for example, and this happens a lot with clients, that you have this relationship, you get to know which other problems they're facing, or when they need another freelancer, they will come to you if they trust you. And so you're in a good position to refer someone or get those additional opportunities. If you're someone who is also doing things like, email marketing and all that, you can get to build up your retainer with a client, and that may not be possible or not so easy with an agency that tend to keep you where you are. Not always the case. I've had the case of the agency asking me if I could do editing, if I could do strategy, and I was able to do more and increase the value of my retainer, so to speak, with them. So it's possible, but I've been working with them for more than a year. So it's because they trust me, and because I've also been saying, I can do more than writing, and I've been communicating in this way. A big thing for me when working with agencies is I feel very limited in terms of the social proof I can build. So I can get testimonials from anyone working with me at the agency, the editor, so that's good, that's great. But what I really want for my work is to have a case study which is as comprehensive as possible. And that's the chance we have with SEO, is we can have an impact on our clients' business. So I want to have that insight. And I find it very difficult if you go through an agency to get any insight regarding what's happening after you published your articles. And you may find also more pressure on deadlines, volume, and that's the problem if I've been doing that, so don't do it, but we all do. We test our limits. I've been thinking sometimes, okay, the price is okay, it's not great, but because they commit to quite a high volume of blogs every month, at the end of the month, that number is interesting. And I thought, okay, I can take this project. But what's happening is you burn yourself out, the quality goes down, you don't feel right about working for this client anymore. So don't try to think that volume can compensate a low price, is what I'm trying to say. And I don't have the opportunity to collaborate or refer as much as I have with clients, and I love to collaborate with my freelancer friends whenever it's possible. So working with direct clients, I've already mentioned, but that's really powerful to me, is to have access to clients. I can understand, especially, we're always trying to think how we can improve our offer, our proposals, or boost the value of what we're doing. And I like to think that I can get those insights, those ideas from the clients I've been working with, directly from them, plus those upselling opportunities. If I ever wanted to do more than writing their blog, I realized, they don't have anyone doing the strategy. They actually need help with strategy work, or, like I said, anything content marketing. So if you're someone who is willing to explore beyond writing, you may be in a better situation if you have access to direct clients. And that will give you a better potential to increase your income, especially if you were successful at increasing your rates every year, as we should do. I'm more in control of the relationship, so I feel it's easier to retain them, because at least I should know what's happening with the client. Whereas if we lose a client with an agency, I don't really know. I never know what's really happened, what was the problem. And so I like to know what's going on whenever it's possible. And I think if you want to grow in the long term, you do need to have direct clients in the mix. So as much as I'm keeping some agency work for the reason that I've explained, I don't see myself only doing agency work, if that makes sense. I will always want to keep that going with clients. And I've had in the past opportunities to refer freelancers because I have the trust from those clients. And if that's something I can cover myself, that's an upsell. If I can't cover this, then I'm making someone very happy. So that's what I like to see, or even collaborate if we work together on the same project. The cons, well, you do have to market yourself to find new clients and make sure that this keeps going, so that if you lose a client, you have ways to find something as quickly as possible. That is not avoidable, unfortunately. Then it's more, well, that's a very personal thing, but I do feel more responsibility whenever I'm working directly with a client, especially, if they're quite small and they don't have anyone in marketing, and I can end up doing a lot more than what I thought I would be doing in the first place. And it's quite typical with a bit of experience that they come up to you because they need something. For example, they need editing. And then you start you talk to them and you start having a look at what they're doing, and you realize, no, you don't have a strategy in the first place, and therefore I can edit hundreds of blogs for you. It's not going to make much of a difference. And so I'm always the one who is educating them. And I think that's where my value is coming from, but that's a lot more work and time before we finally agree, on the scope of work, what I'm going to do, the budget and everything. So all mentally, it's more efforts for me, and it's all worth it, but that's also why I think I like to mix both, because I feel agency work for me is like having a break. I don't need to think as much. So each side has pros and cons. Is quite typical of freelancing. If you've never tried to work with one of those two, you may want to experiment. Like I said, I've had experience with agency from the beginning, and it was very helpful because I had no clue what I was doing. I didn't have any structure or processes in the first place. So it was very, very good learning experience. And then it happened to me that after a few years, I ended up working with agencies again, and now I can still see some advantages in doing that. But I would definitely consider, no matter what, for you to try and get those direct clients and experiment for yourself if you're someone who wants to go above and beyond what you're currently doing with agencies and get better rates, even if that means more work and responsibility. But especially if you want to be more in control and you're someone who can work by yourself without much guidance, really. So if you're someone who has more experience, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's where the opportunities are really coming from the client side. So there's no right or wrong, but you might find that agencies feel reassuring in a way, and I know we're all intimidated by direct clients at first. But again, a lot of value there if you manage to get some. And you may consider working with both. There's nothing wrong there. You see that this is what I'm doing. That's okay too. You get the benefits of both worlds. That's it about agencies and direct clients for now. Just a reminder, I know some of you are already joining the writing challenge, but there will be a few more, not only next week, but also August and October. And if you haven't had a look yet, lots of resources on my website, including this calculator, if you want to get a better idea of how to price health blogs. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you. Bye-bye.